who are the players to you? We'll start off with your number one pick. If you were to say like, okay, this guy more than anyone else in the NFL needs to have a big year, who would that be?
There's a lot of quarterbacks that have stuff to prove. I think we got to see it from your team, the Patriots. We got to see Cam.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, Cam would be probably my top pick. I like the Antonio Brown pick. Didn't really think about him just because, he won the Super Bowl last year. He's not really looked at as like a primary option, although he's Antonio Brown. Like, it's one of the best receivers we've ever seen. But like his off the field obviously has questions. And we did hear about the knee thing earlier today. So we'll see really what that mess is all about at the end of the day. But I'm sure Tom Brady and Bruce Arians would like to have him back on the field as long as his head's okay. But as long, for Cam Newton, it's not about his head. It's about his play. And last year, I've always been a Cam guy. When he signed with the Patriots, he was the guy that I wanted them to sign after Brady left, actually. He made a video about it, I think in May or June, and I was pushing for it. So when it happened, I was really excited because I thought that he would come in there and give the Patriots a legitimate chance and give them a starter, even though the team wasn't as good, that could maybe bring them to the playoffs. Obviously, he started off really well, and they looked like a good team. He even looked like an MVP candidate the first month of the season there with the incredible performance in Seattle. Obviously, the way he started the season versus Miami. So Cam had some really ups and he had some downs. He played really well versus the Jets, the Texans. He had some downs. He played poorly versus the Niners and the Broncos and that national game versus the Rams, obviously. So there was games where a lot of people nitpicked and said, oh my, that guy, he's awful. Like he doesn't deserve to be a starter anymore. Everyone's been talking about it, the COVID situation, the lack of an off season where he didn't really get to learn the offense. He felt like he was always behind. He even expressed it. So now Belichick, we've discussed it at length, dollar bill. He spent all the dough, all the money everywhere. Jonnu Smith, Hunter Henry, Nelson Aguilar, Kendrick Bourne, et cetera, on the offense, bringing Trent Brown back at right tackle. So they have a new and improved offense, and they're expecting Cam to bring that team to the playoffs and win this season.
Yep. So he's got to do it. There's no around him, right?
Yeah.
And he never looked right after COVID to me. I mean, he just really didn't. And that it's a weird world, regardless, right, with what we're dealing with. But if all things had stayed the same on the Patriots, I think the expectations wouldn't be as high. But with that spending in the offseason, the Patriots have done their part, right? It's like the reverse Rodgers, right? Like it's almost exactly like it's like flip Rodgers scenario. Can you imagine if Rodgers was right now like getting all those gifts? He'd be like, me, making it rain. We wouldn't be talking about Aaron Rodgers if he was in the situation and had the team being built around him like the Patriots are. So Cam, you got to win. And we both know it. Like I'm team Cam. I love him. He's a friend. I want him to do well, but he's got to do it right now because if he doesn't do it with all this, I don't think you can make the argument that he's a starter.
Yeah. Obviously, I think if he's not back in the playoffs with this team and he's not putting up individual numbers where Cam is a big proponent, big reason they're winning, then I think they're going to move on to Mac Jones and it's just going to be the end of the Cam story, or he's going to end up going somewhere else as a borderline starter. But with Cam, I think this team, I think really, like you said, they offensively are so different from everyone else in the team, just in the league, the way that they can attack you. And that's why I'm really fascinated to watch the Patriots this year, because of the two tight ends and because of their more old school power running approach and what Cam can do as a runner. That's what I thought gave them an edge last year, but you add actual receiving threats on top of that, and it makes them more dynamic. And if Cam can deliver as a passer, can learn that offense, then he has a ceiling that not a lot of people are talking about. I feel like a lot of people are looking at Cam as a guy, okay, maybe he's the starter for this amount of time, and then Mac comes in, or he could be okay at best. But I don't think anyone is really talking about, and this is almost where I feel Bill Belichick might have been like, you know what happened with Cam last year might have not been that bad of a thing for us because we got to sign him for $5 million and we got to add all these players. And if we do get absolute max Cam Newton, then hey, we're a Super Bowl team. Like, we're not just good, but we're really good, because this guy obviously has a ceiling that not many other quarterbacks have. So that makes Cam Newton probably one of the most fascinating players entering this season, because of the range of outcomes that could exist for his play. So,
and a pissed off Cam Newton is a dangerous Cam Newton, right? Like I told you, I've played kickball with that man, and he comes to Timberlands, and he gets the whole team going. Like, you know, some people don't know how they feel about him or what he's like to be around. He is magnetic, right? Like, he is a big kid who is seriously good at being seriously funny in situations that other people would flop on. Like, he literally had the whole team doing spirit fingers. I probably have video of it somewhere, to be honest, right? Like, we're cheering for everybody. And, you know, he really is that guy. So for the people who have questions, and I know there are always questions, mostly about his wardrobe, but he really is authentic in everything that he does. So I like pissed off Cam Newton. I like competitive Cam Newton. I think he needs to bring those Timberlands and kick those haters to the side. That's what I think.
Yeah, it was not the off the field, because the team bought in, the leadership was there. The coaches obviously bought in to bring him back. It's just a matter of the play. Another quarterback I would look at that I'm sure is on your radar, you know him as well, is Jameis Winston. Jameis Winston, this is the year to prove if he can still be a starter in the NFL, period, point blank. A lot like Cam, where, you know, former first overall pick, high expectations, hasn't had the success Cam has had. He's not the legend Cam is, but obviously we've seen the talent. And now he goes to a place with Sean Payton where he's taking over for Drew Brees. And there's not a lot of pressure on him, to be quite honest. Like, there's pressure on him to be that guy after Drew Brees. But everyone looks at the Saints and says, oh, okay, the Bucs are in their division. You know, Drew Brees not there. They lost some players. Like, they're not expected to be this great team they were. But if he could take them to the playoffs even, and be a winning team, I think that he would be majorly successful, and people would look at him as a success this year. What are your thoughts on Jameis Winston proving it in 2021?
Yeah, I think he's got to prove it, right? We all know that it was hard for him to get signed coming off the Buccaneers, you know, and it was the interceptions question. You've still got that question, but thankfully, you know, his thumb is fixed now. His knee is fixed. He hopefully
his eyes are fixed.
Right. He hopefully won't have 2 deaths in December in his close family. And he had LASIKs, and he's had a year to be mentored by Drew Brees, and he's had a year to learn Sean Payton's system. He never got that, right? Like, when he came out of Florida State, he was 20 years old, and he was expected to be the guy. And he was expected to be the guy on a team that was not the team. And they did not have the coach, right? So he really got thrown to the wolves without having, you know, the benefit of that quarterback mentor, that coach that could really build into or build around you. And then he kind of got shuffled with some other, you know, garbage. And then, you know, I mean, we all know I didn't like the narrative that Tampa Bay brought out. I thought they could have actually given him context and, you know, had his back a little bit more in that transition, not have left him, you know, hunting for a backup position. And yet I do think it's the best possible place, right? Because to have gotten into that situation, to have earned the trust of Drew Brees, you know, you saw the love with Sean Payton because he let him come in and throw a touchdown. I mean, that was big, right? Like, and that's really symbolic and powerful and important. And I think it is truly my belief that, you know, Sean had already said Taysom would get the reins if something happened, right? And he's a guy that keeps his word, which is really hard to do a lot of the times in a place like the NFL, right? Like, you have a former Heisman Trophy winner sitting on your bench, but you still stick with what you said you were going to do. Sean Payton, I'm here for it, right? Like, I would run through a wall for you because I trust you, because you handled that situation the way you did with honesty and integrity. Even if I didn't like it, I gotta respect it. And I also think that, Sean didn't want to have, get Teddied again and have another team scoop his guy that he basically brought in and proved that he could be good with. And then all of a sudden it's like, he gone. So nobody got to see Jameis. So nobody knows anything about Jameis Winston right now, other than the forgettable number of interceptions. And
it's not forgettable. I remember it clearly.
Well, I mean, yeah, and you're right. It's not saying that, like,
but it's not. Yeah, I get what you're saying.
Like, and you're exactly right. It was a bad choice of words, but it's like all they're thinking of right now is that and the potential upside, because you know what? He also
that's the difference
for more yards, right?
The difference to me between him, you brought up Teddy. The difference between him and Teddy is I've seen the upside of Jameis Winston. Right. And as much as somebody may like Teddy, I know you like Teddy, I've never seen the upside of Teddy being even, like, a top 10 quarterback. Like, if you were to tell me Jameis Winston was a top 10 quarterback next year, I would not be surprised whatsoever, because I've seen games where he is fantastic. Even in that season where he had the 30 for 30, and the 5,000 yards, like he threw 5,000 yards. The team was terrible defensively. Like, they had a lot of issues. And like you said, I totally agree with that point. Like, I didn't think Bruce Arians handled that well. And a little bit of that trickled into the season with Tom Brady as well, where he was throwing even Tom Brady under the bus. So, Bruce Arians is a great coach, but there were certain things with that situation, with the organization, that I didn't like how they handled that. And I didn't think everything was on Jameis. And I think, if maybe he would have played last year, like you said, like maybe he goes somewhere else and it's not as good of a situation. I think Jameis made the right decision sticking with one of the best offensive coaches of all time, in my opinion, and one of the best coaches in the game. So I think that was a great decision. I hope he does well this year. He has the offensive line. He has a great receiver and Michael Thomas. He has a very good running back. So we'll see if he can do something in New Orleans, but that's definitely a guy that has something to prove. There's another number 1 overall pick that has something to prove, not to me in terms of his talent and in terms of how great of a player he's been, but to everybody else, to finally put the haters to rest, to say, you know what? I'm not the reason that this team lost. Matthew Stafford in LA, okay, is a number 1 overall pick, who to me has been the most criminally underrated quarterback of the last decade, because he's played for the Detroit Lions, who are so bad. I can't even begin to express how bad they are.
But wait, what I want to know, Mitch?
Yes.
Can I get a pet lion and put him on the field? Because I want to do it. I don't know if the ownership
bite kneecaps,
but I'm gonna bite kneecaps and I'm gonna get a pet lion.
Matthew Stafford has something to prove in terms of success as a team in the NFL. We've seen this success as an individual. We've seen him put up touchdowns and yards and even take teams to the playoffs, but the playoff success has not been there. Now he finally has a coach. He has a running game, which he's never had. He has a pretty good defense, and he has some receivers to work with. So I'm just super pumped for Matthew Stafford.
Yeah, it's a great point. Like, I mean, unfortunately, because of the team that he's been on, he's been forgettable, right? Like, and this really is forgettable because
nobody watches the Lions.
That's right. I couldn't have told you really anything because I'd be like, man, it's the Lions. And I think the last time I really remember watching them was on Thanksgiving, and all I could say was, stop lying. Like, ugh. That was the game when I coined the phrase, like, dry turkey. It was so terrible to watch. It was painful. It was bland. It was terrible. So yes, like, and now he's going to be bright lights, big city. I think it'll reinvigorate Sean McVay too. Like, I mean, he was over Goff. I was over Goff. I mean, Goff could have been golfing for all I'm concerned.
Jen, they were trying to start John Wolford over Jared Goff.
Right, I know. Wolford.
I'm sorry. I don't mean to, disrespect John Wolford. But if Jared Goff was that bad that they legitimately wanted to start John Wolford in the playoffs.
Yeah, I forgot about that. But yes, they did. And you know, I mean, you have toughness questions about him, all this stuff, like, ah.
Mhm.
And you know, I try to give guys an upside, right? Like I really do. Having been in that business, it's hard. But him to me, like, if I was Sean McVay, I would be over it too. Right. And sometimes that's why guys do so much better when they go elsewhere because there's just too much that's gone on that you just can't shake it loose. And
Yeah.
so hopefully it'll be better on both sides, but I still do want to know about the lion on the sidelines. Did you hear that?
No.
Oh,
Are they actually gonna have like a lion mascot or something?
the coach like asked if he could get a real lion. That's why I brought it up. If he could, we don't know
That
yet
would
if it
be
was
pretty intense.
right. We don't know yet if it was a joke, but seeing as how he wanted to bite kneecaps, like
I don't think anything with Dan Campbell is a joke,
no, and
honestly.
I don't actually think you're allowed to joke yet because right now you just are a joke and you're in a team that was a joke. So maybe lay off the funny attempt because win some games and then you'll have some street cred with us, right? Like, and then maybe
Yeah.
people, you know, they'll be like not laughing to keep from crying, which right now is the narrative with the Detroit Lions. Literally, I was like, stop lying. Like you say you play football, stop lying. You think you can win a game, stop lying. Right? Like everything about them was a lie if you actually wanted football consumption, if you actually wanted to feel like you were, you know, you were getting a game. And so no to him. No.
Yeah. And Matthew Stafford, I saw a quote earlier. He said, "This is the first season in a while that I'm excited for," which is, it tells the story right there. Who's the next player on your list that you would say, ooh, this guy's got something to prove? You have anyone off the top of the head?
Yeah, I mean, I have a few. I have a very long list. And I think
Okay.
you're cheating off my homework earlier because literally you were like, I think this guy. And I was like, yep.
Yeah.
We're
Yeah.
sharing the brain cell.
Well, I mean, there's some obvious
We're
ones.
sharing
right?
the brain cell today, Mitch. We're right in sync. We're right here. But the next one I'm going to say is I got to see Dak.
Oh, I like that one.
I got to see Dak. And I really got to see Zeke too.
Yeah.
You know, because your O-line should be reinvigorated. So Zeke,
Healthy.
pull your shirt down, stop showing your belly, make sure you shave your beard, and let's actually play some football. Because you know what? Dak is going to need you. Dak is going to need you to carry the load and to justify the fact that we paid you before we paid him.
Yeah,
And
that's
still makes me mad.
It still makes me mad that they paid him over Byron Jones, to be honest. Like I was considering how bad their defense was, like a corner would have been helpful. I don't know.
So many things would have been helpful. I mean, I'm going to go with some of those problems on the Dallas defense being the actual coordinator. And I think they're in a much better place now from that position. But
Yeah.
I have got to see Zeke really actually justify his reputation because I think he got paid prematurely. I've never been particularly all in on him. He's too erratic for me. There's too many, you know, I never got past the belly shirt. Like
I think Zeke's always been a good player. Like I've never said he's like the best back in the league or anything. Maybe some people have gone there. I felt like the offensive line early in his career was, you know, probably the best in football, which really helped him start strong. But I always felt like he was good, well-rounded, you know, tough, physical, like that type of back. But every year it feels like his play has dipped. You know, the explosiveness, it's dipped. You know, the effort. He just doesn't feel like a guy that puts in that Frank Gore level, you know, commitment or whatever. But we'll see this year. I mean, especially because the offense isn't on Zeke's shoulders as much anymore. It's more of it's Dak's offense. Like they want him to throw for 5,000 yards like he was on pace to do last year. So.
Yep. But we need Zeke to carry his load, right? Like when Dak was gone, Zeke was gone. Like there was no Zeke. Like,
he might even lose his job too. I mean, Tony Pollard was outplaying him last year.
Yeah. Zeke, like get a peek maybe like of the fact that you could like get caught by somebody on your own team, much less the defense. Like you're beating yourself. I don't
Yeah.
trust you with that O-line back and with your quarterback, you know, I think Dak will be physically better, but remember, there is still the mental side of that injury, which means you
Yeah.
need your running back. Number one, you need to trust him and you need to know that he's going to be there. So Zeke needs to, especially early and often, establish himself, or I am further done. I'm going to say peekaboo to you and go on, take your belly shirt and go elsewhere. Go join Deshaun at the longest yard.
You would fit right in. I don't know why. It just would work. Anyways.
Well, there is the character in there that wears the belly.
Yeah. Wasn't there?
I'm not saying he belongs in jail. I'm just saying I really actually picture him as that character wearing the belly. It was literally a wardrobe thing. It's literally.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what I was going for too. With Dak, though, I think Dak, he was on a trajectory last year where he was looking like a legitimate, like top 5 quarterback. Like the first 4 weeks, yes, they were losing games, but every loss was like to the Seahawks 40-38. Like it was like Dak slicing and dicing and just like looking elite, the best he's ever looked. So for that really to happen right as he's ascending to the best play he's ever had, it's going to be interesting to see if he can take off where he was, or if it's going to take some time to get back where he was, because that could ultimately tell a story of the new contract he's gotten. If he comes back right away and he's, this is the same Dak we saw last year, he's on that trajectory to really carry this team in the future, or he's just going to be, you know, good, but not good enough to really fulfill that contract. So that's really a fascinating one, I think, for Cowboys fans, and a better defense from Dan Quinn would certainly help that cause as well.
Come on, Dan Quinn. Come on. It really couldn't be worse, though.
No, so it honestly couldn't.
Dan Quinn does not have much to prove, actually, while we're talking about who has stuff to prove. Who else do you see, Mitch? Who else is on your list? What's your tweet, Mitch?
I think we're sticking with the quarterback trend here because the quarterbacks I think are real. Like there's so many. Honestly, you could go down the list. It's probably half the league that has something to prove a quarterback. There's another one that I think is probably going to lose his job, and he might be on the outside looking in, is Jimmy Garoppolo. I mean, Jimmy Garoppolo, he's somebody that I think he might not even start week 1. If he does, good for him, and hopefully he can take advantage of it. I think they're going to win regardless of who the quarterback is, and they're going to be a good team regardless. But Jimmy Garoppolo has to prove first and foremost that he can stay healthy, because it seems like every single season, he's only really had one season, and he went to the Super Bowl where he was fully healthy, and the team around him was good, and they were successful. But I think he's a starting quarterback in the NFL, definitely. And I think as long as he can stay healthy, he should be given that opportunity. It's just like, I don't know if he's fragile or what it is, but it just feels like every single time the guy is given an opportunity, you just can't rely on him to be there for 16 games.
Yeah. I'm not all in on Jimmy G. He doesn't line up for me. I
think he's I think he's a fine quarterback. Like, I think I'm not looking at him as a top 10 guy or a top, maybe even top 20, but I do think he's a fine quarterback that should have a job. And when he's healthy, he's good enough to get you to a Super Bowl on certain teams. So definitely so.
Coach Laxer said, Zeke not in Cabo, we good. Hack into the boys to the NFC final game.
And they have a defense.
Yeah. Well, look, but he is right about that Cabo. That Cabo got him, and he came back, and it was not good. So I appreciate that. Coach Laxer wants to know about the red rifle niche.
The red rifle, Andy Dalton. I don't think I don't think he has anything to prove, because I don't think anyone has any expectation.
Yeah.
I think his career is like kind of set in stone. Like, he's this guy that was a starter. He was average. He had some success, but he's never going to be looked at as like one of the best quarterbacks in the league. He's just, I think his legacy is what it is at this point. Like he could do awful and nobody would say anything different. He could do amazing. And, you know, maybe people are like, yeah, he's just what he used to be. Maybe he's reinvigorated a little bit, but I don't really see him like ultimately this team, the Bears, it's Justin Fields' show at the end of the day.
Right. It's going to be Fields. I mean, it's also, you know, Fields and Soldier Field, and we've already seen the narratives come out.
Field, yeah.
I mean, they have to do it. So Dalton is patchwork to me, right? Like he may start a few games. He will allow them to see when Fields is ready. Again, I'm not a fan of putting quarterbacks in before they're ready. It's short-sighted in their career trajectory. We've lost too many quarterbacks that way. So Dalton is serviceable, right? Like if you need to have him play 3 games, let him play 3 games. If you're still in doubt, have him play 6 games. I don't think Chicago Bears are going to do a hill of nothing this year. So I don't feel pressure to say, we got to put in Fields right now because we're so close. We're not close. You're not. So just relax. Just take your time. Let Fields become the player that he can become. And don't you dare give him a terrible shot. Don't do it. Don't do it. You coaches like that do that. It's really frustrating, especially when you don't have to, right? You don't have to. Andy Dalton will be fine. He is fine. This is the best I got for him is fine. And I think, I think they're over Jimmy G in San Fran. You don't move up.
Oh, for sure. I'm just thinking about his future because he's still, I think he's 29 or 30. So like, if he wants to be a starting quarterback in the NFL, whether that's in San Francisco or elsewhere, he's going to have to prove himself this year because this year is the turning point for him being a future starter or not. That's just the way I see it. There's another guy that I think
maybe he can go to Chicago too.
Yeah, maybe, but I just think Fields is going to be their guy.
Look, I mean, I just meant that because they seem to like collect quarterbacks that don't.
They do. Nick Foles, Andy Dalton.
Yeah, so I'm just like, you know, maybe Jimmy G can go there too. Maybe we'll just have a QB party.
Maybe QB party. There's 2 quarterbacks, young quarterbacks that I'm looking at this year, and they're both in the East. There's one in the AFC East. There's one in the NFC East that I see big turning points. One is Tua in Miami, although it's still early. And the other one, a little bit deeper into their career, but Daniel Jones with the Giants. Those 2 quarterbacks, Tua, I've never been very high on, and I've expressed that many times. But if he's going to be their guy, this is the year. They surrounded him with receivers. They added Will Fuller. They added Waddle in the draft. They, of course, have a good defense, a good coach.
Waddle, who did not look thrilled.
No, Waddle, who was all about, you know, the sunglass game.
Waddle was like, that. God, I thought I finally got away from this dude. That's why that's why he had sunglasses on. I can't let them see my eyes because
that's a good theory. I think he's also upset because he said that Mac Jones was better during the offseason. So maybe Tua's going to confront him about that. But Tua, I just think has so much to prove this year because people are already doubting him coming into this season, even though the media was building this guy up as, you know, going to be the first overall pick until Joe Burrow came out of nowhere and surprised everybody. And then he had high expectations coming into last year, kind of disappointed those expectations. This year, all the pressure is on Tua. Oh yeah. I mean, and the Dolphins did him dirty last year. You don't do that 2 steps forward, 1 step back, you know, icky. It's not the icky shuffle in that case, but it is icky football, right? Like it's just, I mean, I know they wanted to sell jerseys. I know tuna is close to, you know, Florida, and it's actually what, you know, dolphins can eat, and, you know, they hang out near it because of the bait fish and stuff. And, but nothing about that made sense. You had a guy who was winning, and then you put in another guy. You had a guy the locker room felt good with. You put in another guy, and then you freaking. That felt to me like a situation where the front office and the coach were in some sort of disagreement, because it almost felt like Brian Flores was going to play the quarterback that he felt was best for the team, which I think was Fitzpatrick. Yep. And it felt like the front office was forcing him to play Tua. Do you agree with that?
I mean, it happened somewhere. The pressure came from somewhere because what he did in the game when they put him in, and I always like to give coaches the benefit of the doubt, right? Like I was like, I don't like it, but maybe they know something I don't, right? Before we saw how it went down. And then it went terrible. And then you actually could have, like, you know, you did a little something, and then Fitzmagic gets COVID, and then you just, right? Like it was just all messy. And so like Tua is now like leaving a bad taste in his mouth for everybody. It's like, ugh, God, that guy, right? Like, why do we have to do it? Our season went the way of what you did with him. And now, have you seen that your toy that was maybe or maybe not broken is now broken? Like you shook the box too hard. And once you shook the box, you actually like broke it. And or proved that it was already broken, right? Maybe it was never that good, but it would have been too early to say that had they not done this terrible to a two-step. So we have to see what that's going to look like. And you're right. It's if he doesn't do it with Waddle and some of that, like I'm done. I'm cutting bait. I'm cutting bait on Tua. Like again, like you said, you were never in on him. I was never high on him. I kind of didn't get it, but okay. You know, I always imagine, having been on the coaching side, that they have a plan and that they must know something I don't. That's just me.
You have to assume that. No, I agree with that notion. It's like you have to assume that the coaches know because they know the guy, they know the player, they've seen him in practice countless times. We have not. So like you got to think that at the end of the day.
Absolutely have to think that. But have we seen that? Nah.
No. We can only judge what we can judge.
Right. And what we
Speaking of judge, Joe Judge, and the Giants have a decision to make with Daniel Jones. I think this could be the season for Daniel Jones. I actually really do. I've liked, for the most part, what I've seen with Daniel Jones. There's been a lot of ups and downs. It's been a little erratic, a little chaotic. He's turned the ball over, but he's also made big plays. And that's the thing to me is like Daniel Jones, I've seen enough positives where I'm willing to like jump on the bandwagon a little bit, where I'm like, I see this throw. I see this run that he makes where he trips on his face. But, you know, like I think now with just the defense they have, the coaching staff in his second year, Jason Garrett's offense in his second year, getting SAQUON back, who's another guy that has something to prove, and getting Kenny Golladay and our guy Kadarius Toney, and just they've put an offense around him that I think now it's his time. It's his third year. It's that time to jump off and become the quarterback that the Giants need him to be.
I think maybe it's time for you to jump off him.
Okay.
I don't see him. I have not seen him. That's why I was making faces. I wanted to let you have your rant and your moment because
we can disagree though. That's perfectly fine.
Because it was well put together. And I hear you with the other components when it comes to the Cowboys. And I actually really want Jason Garrett to do well. Everybody who knows him loves him. Like, you know, really smart guy and, you know, all of this stuff. Right. And I like Golladay and Barkley being back. I don't like Eli 2.0. And I can't even call him 2.0 because he might be 0.2. Right. Like, I don't even think he lives up to Eli, right? Eli won 2 Super Bowls. This guy,
Eli's a borderline Hall of Famer. So if he were to be Eli, then he's probably pretty good.
Right. But look, that's why I said 0.2. I didn't want to say 2.0 like he was better than Eli.
He was bad. Maybe he's bad Eli. Yeah.
Right. He's maybe bad Eli. Exactly. But like, and still, Eli was not my favorite.
He was inconsistent. That's
right. He was not that guy I want to go to war with. And that's what I want. Like, I want that, you know, trench battle guy. It doesn't mean he's always there, but I always trust that he is fighting as hard as everybody else, right? That he instills confidence and swagger in other people. Never picked up some swagger from Eli.
That's what I'll say though, Jen, to just counterpoint here is, yes, he doesn't have the swag. He doesn't have Cam Newton swag. Okay. But when he's on the field, Daniel Jones and Eli, there's a reason those teams won Super Bowls. It's because what I see in Daniel Jones is similar to Eli, where yes, they're not loud, but they take hits, they're tough, and they make throws under pressure when they need to. And I know it's early in his career. Eli struggled early in his career as well. Like, it took a little bit of time for him to get there. Like, I see the legitimate toughness almost to a fault with Daniel Jones, where he needs to start to decisions need to be quicker at times, where that's almost like leading by example with that.
But that's what you say about a quarterback. Can he make decisions under duress consistently? Right.
We'll have to find out. I don't know.
Right.
He hasn't.
Right. Well, he would have to really show me something to get my attention. Right.
Okay.
I mean, he really would, because I've been unmoved, unwavered. They made me call them the little giants last year, because it was just like, better give them some Alka-Seltzer, because other than that, I'm not fearful of them.
This is the year. If the Giants want to make that jump, this is the year. Speaking another giant, I think we should talk a little bit about Saquon, because when he was a rookie, this guy, to me, already the best running back in the league, like, just took over. I think he was the first running back ever to have, as a rookie, a combined 2,000 yards. So that's pretty impressive. And then the 2 seasons following, last year he had like a pretty good year, but he was banged up a bit. And then the year before, or the year after that, which was 2020, he got hurt in the second game, I think. So we really didn't see him at all. But he's already had some injured seasons where this was the next great running back by many, including myself. Like, I looked at him coming out of college, coming out of Penn State, like, this is the next guy.
Right.
So it's a big year just to stay healthy and to perform.
Yeah. I would love to see him back to the guy he can be, because that's football, right? Like, that's like, you're like, yeah, like, you're going to get it. You're going to, just like breaking ankles, breaking hearts, you're like, yes, okay, could literally open it up on people. And yet when you don't see it, it's tough. Right. And so I don't know that it's make or break for him, other than the, timing for running backs is generally, it's so much shorter. Right. And they're expected to produce right away, because we know they don't have the longevity because of the beating that they take. And that's what we're seeing with him right now. Right. Like, it is a tough position. You are getting hit on every play, whether you're running the ball or you're blocking. I mean, nobody takes really more contact than the running back, and that extreme high-powered, high-speed contact. And, running like that is tough. And being that guy, especially being durable and being that guy, is really hard. So I hope that he is healthy. Now, I will say, I think we saw a lot of injuries early in the season last year, which was a definite, result of the COVID offseason, which was no offseason, right? It was, and for a position like that, especially the way he plays, that is really tough, right? Like, because you're not in football shape. And I know that you people can say, like, I'm in shape, I've been doing running drills. No, it is different running through people. And it's also different with the timing with your offensive line and being really in sync with them, so that, which guy, and, when you're going to be able to cut back on his hips, and those little subtle movements that you don't even necessarily realize that you have. But once you're like, oh yeah, this is how he does it, or he's going to match up against this guy, and you really get better together. And it takes reps for that timing to be done well, because running backs are expected to hit a hole that's not there yet, right? Like, it's not like they wait to hit the hole. If you wait to hit the hole, that means the linebacker's hitting you. And so I think, with the amount of injuries that happened so early last year, that really is a matter of the offseason. And so let's hope that it was not indicative of his career trajectory. Yes. I don't know why I ever picked to say that word. It's generally not going to
avoid it. That's what I do.
Yeah. His career path. But I hope it's not indicative of that, but it could be. And I think that's what we're going to see. Was it a bad offseason?
I hope not.
Freak accident, or,
I hope not, because like when I watch, he's my favorite guy at running back to watch, just because like he's one of the few, if not the only, where if they have the ball at the 20-yard line and they hand the ball off to him, he's going to go 80 yards. Like, there's not a lot of running backs in the NFL that, like, just you see the hole and it's like Okay. Yeah, he's gone.
You're
Or like
oh,
the jump
what the
cuts. I
fuck
mean,
happened?
just, yeah.
Yeah, like, oh yeah, the jump cuts. Golly. Woof.
He's known to have some of the best quads in the NFL. And I'm not sure if you saw Mike Davis. Did you see this picture of Mike Davis for the
No,
Atlanta Falcons?
no, I
I
didn't.
need to find this picture. Okay, I think I have it right here. So Bleacher Report said the Falcons running backs quads are huge. Look at this guy.
Oh yeah. I think they're swollen. Did somebody sting him?
It
Did
looks like
him?
there's
Yeah.
a full turkey in his thigh.
And you know what? That is also really hard to tackle because if you're trying to wrap up, like, you know, like my arms would be like one leg, turkey leg, but
Just holding on.
yeah, but you know, when we say put their legs together, I mean, and that's literally the job. My arms wrapping up those legs, that's a mismatch. That's tough.
Yeah, maybe speak a little bit about that. Just in the, you know, playing running backs, just the importance of having the lower body. It's something that we don't really talk about, you know, because it's like a physical attribute that if like you wouldn't really think about. But running backs, they have those lower bodies where it's just like they can take that beating, right?
Yes. And so, you know, they have to have the musculature and the change of direction, which is a lot of the times where you see that thick development and that sinewy tenure, because they have to develop not just straight line speed, but you know, the ability to change direction completely, right?
Yeah.
You don't see that with wide receivers, right? Like they may have to cut, but they're not having to jump like through a line. Plus the way that they run is also not upright. It's down basically in that squat position. You have to be able to power through contact, and so being thick like that, also just even the physical thickness, not only does it help you with the running and the power that you need, but you know, literally, as I was saying with a tackler, to do a good form tackle, which a guy like that is really hard to bring down, right? If you hit them upright, what do we see all the time? You bounce off like, bing, that's not going to work, right? So what you're taught is, you know, put their legs together, right? Like that's why you're supposed to wrap up. Though some people forget that. But the only way you're going to stop a guy like that is if you literally put his legs together. Now, with those massive legs, that's a tough matchup, right? Like there are going to be, and you're going to try, but you may be like,
he did have behind Derrick Henry, the second most broken tackles in the NFL last year. Very underrated player.
That's why. And the broken tackles are power running and the ability to, you know, it's run through. It's also the height that you're running with, right? Like, so nice and low, you'll see that they have a lot of deep end, which puts more power into the contact and allows them to think almost like squat thrust through or lunge through, as opposed to straight line speed that you see more in a wide receiver, that they don't have that now. And that's not all of them, because some of them still run like that, especially into contact. You'll see them lower into contact, but it's just, that is their predominant thing, and that they have to go through traffic like that. And so getting lower like that, also, you always hear low man wins, right? So if I am a running back and I can run low like that, it's even harder for the defender to be able to get low enough to tackle me and use his body, right, to drive through. That's when you also see a lot more of that dive or reaching for a guy like that, a reach tackle. You might as well just leave your shoulder like 30 yards back. But diving through a guy like that, he's often going to be able to power through it, where a more straight line runner will likely not. So it's really hard to tackle. And that's when you have to explode up and through. So the trick is the hip drive, explode up and through and wrap through, so that hopefully you can get enough knockback so that they can't power step through you. Does that make sense? Like, and that's why they say low man wins, because if the running back is lower than the tackler, the running back will likely beat the tackler on contact. If the tackler can get lower and almost get on the underside and get enough knockback to get that, just the step to hesitate, then they'll probably make the tackle.
And I think that's often the thing that we see with older backs is like when that starts to go, that ability to, grind and get low like that, that's when you start to see that running back regress and not be the same player that they used to be.